Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my studio. My name is Michael Markowsky, and today we are going to be making a painting by one of my favorite artists. Her name is Shary Boyle. She's a Canadian artist who is from Scarborough, Ontario, which is also where my mother's side of the family, my mom, is from. And so my mom loves, well, I don't know if she still loves Scarborough, but I think it holds a warm place in her heart. And there's kind of a little tiny connection there, you know, 1 or 2 5-degree separation there. Anyway, Shary Boyle, I think, in my personal opinion, I was trying to think today, is there another Canadian artist that I think is at her level? And I was really, like, I really can't think of another artist that is maybe both as prolific, as you know, technically gifted, and who makes art that is, you know, just looks virtuosic. We're gonna look at some of her work today, and the more I was doing research on her, I was thinking, like, wow, she's like one of these, like, polymaths that can do everything, especially within the art world, and using all sorts of different art materials. So let's what's the best way to go about all of this? Wow, I look really bright, don't I? Okay. Let's I want to share, let's take a look at this first. So if you look in the video description below, you will find a link to a Dropbox folder. And in this Dropbox folder, you'll see some of the files from this particular course. There's a whole other Dropbox folder for our Paint the News class on Thursdays, and for the entire 45 episode long introductory to painting course, which there's 45 other files and artists that we've looked at so far in this series. But let's take a look at Shary Boyle today. And if you click in here, you'll see some files. You'll see a tracing of her work and the original painting itself. There's 2 versions of the tracing here. One of which is a JPEG, one of which is a PDF, just depends on your kind of printer to print these out. And then you can print it out, and then you could color it. You could even paint on this if you wanted, I suppose. But I'm going to use this for just transferring an image onto the canvas. I'll show you how to do that, even though this is probably one of the more simple compositions that we've done recently, considering last week we did the Mona Lisa, right? So so you can print that off if you want to do that while I'm getting warmed up here. The other thing that there's a link to is the Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group just for people that are taking this class and that have been painting with me. I'm at episode 152, so I've been doing this pretty much exactly for 1 year. This is my 1-year anniversary of live streaming at least twice a week. So, a little pat on my back there. Oh, the music. I always forget to turn the music down a bit, okay? Let me see. Hopefully that helps. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. And there might be a bit of a hiss. I'm trying a different... I got a whole new audio setup, and of course it worked perfectly. While I was testing it, I get it set up today, and I can hear the little bit of audio thing. So I think today will just be one of those days where... So let me know if it's intolerable, then I can find a workaround. But it's disappointing to say the least. Anyway, so let's see. So there's this private Facebook group. What is really cool is there's a community of people who have been painting along with me for in some cases a year. I see Peter has been with me ever since before I was live streaming. He took some of my classes in person, so he's an all-star. And there's people who've just started painting with us. I was just looking here earlier today. Like, look at all these awesome works. Ooh, Sharon, that's wild. Who was it? Wow, look, I have some of these. Whoa, cool. That is great. So Eleanor, see Eleanor's artwork here. So she just started, and you can see some of the work that she made. You know, these are paintings we made back in, what, September of last year. So it's so cool that we're starting to pick up more and more steam, and more people are joining us. But anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about Shary Boyle, just as a quick, a bit of her bio. She's, you know, a 70s child, just like myself. She's just a few years older than myself. And, you know, one of the things that I think is super interesting, just reading a little bit about her biography, is, you know, she was in rock and roll bands when she was in high school and college. She went to the Ontario College of Art in Toronto, but she's most famous for making porcelain sculptures, figurative art that we'll look at here in a second. But she's also made paintings and drawings and installations, video, film, music, of course, and in collaborating with different musicians, and then also collaborating to create paintings and drawings and videos with other visual artists. And I think that might be, you know, maybe some of that background in music has filtered into her visual art making, because I would say most, well, I don't want to say most musicians, but a lot of musicians work with other musicians to form a band, right? I do know some solo artists, but a lot of them will, you know, collaborate with a drummer or another guitarist or a singer, violin player, etc. And so it's interesting that she has this music background, and she also is one of the fewer, it's less common for visual artists to collaborate with other visual artists. And she's done many projects like that. And she's exhibited all over the world. I mean, just here, you can see some of the artists and musicians he's collaborated with. Leslie Feist, who, you know, is I hover over that, probably one of the most famous indie musicians in Canada. Was a member of Broken Social Scene, as you could see. Peaches, who's also another extremely well-known musician. Christine Fellows. And probably her biggest accomplishment was representing Canada at the Venice Biennale of Art, which is people call it like the Olympics of art, and it happens every 2 years in Italy, in Venice, Italy. And if when the world returns back to normal, if you ever have a chance and you happen to be in that vicinity of the world, I cannot recommend it highly enough. Let me just take a quick look while we're just right here. The Venice Biennale is, I've been twice, probably, I don't know when the last time I was there. It's been over maybe 12 years since I was there last, but it is a really exciting, cool place to be in. And I mean, Venice itself is an amazing city that's, you know, you see all the people, the gondola drivers, you know, guys standing in boats paddling. There's the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, which I've also been to, which is nothing like the actual Venice, Italy. But what's so cool is that there's all these pavilions, like, that have been permanently built, and Canada has one. It's probably the weirdest, funkiest building you've ever seen. You know, it's if I recall, the Canadian one is right between the American and the Russian pavilion. And this has been going on for, since 1895. And every country invites usually one artist, but sometimes they'll have a show of 5 or 6 artists as a group show in their pavilion. And these pavilions are about the size of, you know, a Vancouver special house, as we call them in here in Vancouver. Like I don't know, I say a regular house, but some people have a pretty big idea of what a regular house is. And anyway, just it's super cool to go there and just wander from house to house, or pavilion to pavilion, looking at all the great art that countries from around the world have sent to represent them at that point in period of time. Anyway, let's look at Shary Boyle's art here. Let me see, why is this running off the page? If it's going to do that, I'll just zoom in. So, you know, if I just Google her name and look for images, you could see the majority of things that come up are these ceramic pieces, which are exquisite, absolutely beautiful. And some of them are, I would say the majority of them are kind of small, as we would expect a porcelain artwork to be, but some of them are much larger. Like, so you could see some of these, and it's kind of fun to think of them as how they play with our ideas of what porcelain and ceramic sculpture can be. You know, if I remember, you know, my grandmother having you know, little porcelain sculptures of little puppy dogs and stuff on the shelf, and they were, you know, really fun, but I was never allowed to touch them because they're super fragile. So, and then here's Shary Boyle, who makes these types of ceramic artworks, which are, you know, they're, I don't know anything about porcelain, but it looks super fragile. It's like super delicate, and the attention to detail and the colors, but they're also really weird. They're very strange. So you might see them and think, oh, it's like the kind of stuff my grandma has. And then you get up and you're like, what on earth is going on? I think this is in the Museum of Fine Arts in Montreal. Oops, let's go back here. And, you know, I've got a few books of hers I got out from the library. She's super prolific, you know, and then here's some stuff where she's done video projections. There's videos of her work. There's a documentation of the piece that she did at the Venice Biennale. I think this kind of looks like the art that she did for the Venice Biennale in the Canadian Pavilion. Yeah, I think this is it. Is it just displayed somewhere else, I think. But it was, you know, this reclining figure and then these overhead transparency projectors, like the kind that I remember when I was in elementary school. And she's got these painted images and photographs on them that are timed, and they're shining on these sculptures. So it's not, you know, not that there's anything wrong with ceramic art, but she takes ceramics as we know them and just transforms them into something that you could, it's hard to even really imagine here. And if I try to show any of these videos, it'll just, the video will get taken down, so I won't do that. But, and you can see interspersed through here, we see some of her paintings and drawings here. So, and then she's of course got her own website, and you can spend hours looking around in here at her art. And obviously we're not going to do a ceramic artwork today. We are going to do a painting, and because this is an intro painting class. So to do that, if you've got this printed out, I'll show you briefly how to transfer that onto a canvas. I just take one of these canvas boards, and I'll just show you because people will ask. So this is the US Art Supply brand, and there's a link to that in the video description below. I've got, you can see a whole bunch of these things. Oh, goodness. So I'm prepared for the long haul to do a lot of these paintings. The links to all of these, this is, what, the Fixsmith brand. How many is in there? 14 here. And to, you know, each one I think is around $30 or so for these, which, so it comes out to about $2.25 per. This is Arteza one, and then this is this US Art Supply 24 pack, which I think is like $40 or something, 45. And I've been painting with all of these for the past while, and they all work really well. They do work better than the cheap $1 ones at the dollar store, which I used for the first 40 episodes or so, and then I couldn't find any because I think they were getting, I like to think there's so many people taking this class that we sold them out locally, and I had to order some, and they turned out to be a little bit better. Anyway, what I've also done after I take these boards is I put some gesso on them. I just get some of this white gesso, and it's acrylic gesso. You can see this is 31 bucks. But, you know, I painted probably 30 of them, and there's still, you can see how much left inside there. That maybe took up that much paint. So if you got 100 of those panels, you could probably do, you know, paint at least 100 of them with the gesso that's in here. And I let that dry. I just put newspaper all out on the floor of the studio here, paint them a bunch at a time. I let them dry, and then I take some sandpaper. Okay, just give it a little light sanding there to take some of the tooth off. That was the 220 sandpaper. I love, thank you for all the well wishes for this anniversary of being here doing these live streams. I appreciate that. And people sharing their experiences, having painted with me for a while. That's really sweet there. Peter says, when I started the drawing class, I thought this was only going to be for about 10 weeks, and here I am at a year later. May says, same here. I started with the drawing. That's right, May, that's right. And I'm still here a year later. Nice to see you too, May. And Deborah says, I'm grateful for Michael and for becoming part of this community. It has saved me during this pandemic and opened a whole new world for me. Thank you, guys. Oh, my goodness. I'm so touched. I appreciate that. I really do. It's kind of baffling to me that this has become what it's become, and then it continues to become. Okay, so again, this is I'm just going to show you really quickly how to do this. And I know if you've been watching me for a year, you've seen me do this 50 times already. But every episode, there's usually about 50% of the people watching are people that have never seen me before, have never visited my channel or watching these videos before. So as much as I just want to go, yeah, I realize, like, then the comments start coming in. How did you do that? How's this, you know? So please bear with me. And okay, so what I did there is I just took some carbon paper. I printed off the template. I used some carbon paper. You can buy that carbon paper from any art supply store. Should have it. There is a link to the Amazon page where you could buy it directly. I think the one I have on Amazon is for like 50 sheets or something, because for 10 it was $6, and for $9 or something it was for 50. You know, like, well, you know, if you're gonna do it. Although I was doing a demonstration like this for my students at Emily Carr, the university I teach at, just yesterday. And one of them says they've been using the same sheet of graphite paper for 4 years. Now, I don't know how many times they've actually used it over the course of 4 years, but they obviously have gotten... I reuse these. This sheet I'm reusing right now is being reused about 4 or 5 times. You know, after a little while, it does lose its, you know, the ink rubs off, but, and there's nothing left to transfer, but it does pretty good. Okay, now, I think, so I'm just going to show you, see how the image transfers on the other side? We're going to paint over all of this anyway, but I do think it is kind of nice just to have an idea of where things are going to go. You could sketch this out pretty darn easily without needing the carbon paper. Okay, and then again, I always mention you could take this and you could color in it. If some of you really like using colored pencils and coloring, you could do that. Or you could give it to a young person in your family who might like to draw or paint over it as well. right? And they could be sitting right next to you, finger painting while you're making your own finger painting. You could finger paint this if you like. Okay. So, look at so many comments. You guys are so sweet. Okay, but I want to keep moving forward. So let's take a look at her painting and think about how we want to go about this. And I've gone back and forth, I don't know how many different times, thinking about the different methods to do this. So as we do this, you are certainly welcome to use the different, I would say there's sort of three main ways that we could do this. One of which is you could paint the whole background with that kind of orange, pink, purple inside the wave. You could paint all of this first, and then afterwards you could paint the waves on top of it. Or you could do the inverse. You could paint all of the waves, and then you could paint this big wave on top of that. You could do them separately so that you just paint the waves across, and then you just leave a blank space, and then you paint this shape inside there as well. You could use tape to do this. So you could paint, let's say you could paint the whole background, these gradations of yellow and pink, and then you could tape off part of the image and then paint the waves right across and then just peel the tape off. We've done a few different tape paintings before. So there's so many different ways to go about this. And again, I've been sitting there, I've thought to myself, which is maybe the fastest way, which is maybe the most accurate way, and of course those aren't necessarily the same processes. So let's maybe take a quicker or a look at the painting itself and see how she did it. And you know, when we look at it, it is kind of hard to tell exactly how she did this. Now I think this is a watercolor painting, I believe, and it looks like she, if I was to guess, especially if she's using watercolor, she may have used like a gum, like a wax to kind of resist, and then peeled that off afterwards, which is kind of like using tape, because this line here is so sharp. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the whole thing purple and yellow and pink, and maybe I'll use I'll show you how. Maybe we'll do half of it with tape and half without, just so you can try to do it with or without. Anyway, so you can tell I'm thinking of this on the spot here. This is the magic happening right here. But I always do think that all of the answers, when you're doing a process like this where you're trying to recreate a painting by a master artist, it's all the answers are in the original painting itself, and it's just a matter of trying to, looking carefully at it for any clues as to how it was made, so that you can create it in the same or similar way. Having said that, though, of course, as I was just mentioning, all those different ways that you could do it, there's not necessarily one and only one way to do it. So, and of course, as we're doing this, you could use all sorts of different colors too. You don't have to use these exact colors that Shary used in her painting. Okay, so let's get our palette set here. We're going to use, it looks like almost every color here. So I'm going to put every color on the palette. I'm going to start with, I usually, as I always say, put about as much on here as I put on my toothbrush. I'll just back that out so you can see. Well, that's surely not cool red. Unless I've just gone colorblind. Okay, so this is probably going to confuse people, but I'm going to... So I'm going to switch these around. See, this is... I was thinking just the other day, I was like, as I was cleaning this, why don't I just put these labels right on here, which I'm sure I had that idea before, and then I realized very quickly it's because of moments like this where I've put the paint in the wrong place where I can go, oh, okay, I'll just switch my labels around. You know, it's one of those things like you forget why you made the decision to do whatever you've done until the situation, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. That was my... There is a method to my madness, even if I don't even know what it is sometimes. I just cross my fingers. Okay, so to make this painting, and if we want to try to make it relatively faithfully accurate to the original, let's okay, so even when it comes to blending, there's a few ways we can do this. One of which is we could just, let's say, put a yellow stripe across here, and then, or maybe even a little bit more yellow, and then we could let it dry, and then we could do another layer of a different color over top, right? Or we could be blending wet colors into one another. So maybe let's do a combination of both. So how about I'll do the yellow and then the red. So I'll do yellow, let it dry, put the red on top of it afterwards. So kind of like a glaze, and I'll blend it a dry version, and then we'll do some wet on wet here, just so we can have a little bit of a playing with mixing colors. Now, as you may remember, when I'm teaching, one thing I often do is we talk about warm and cool colors and putting cool colors in the background and warm colors in the foreground. I'm gonna kind of just for today just kind of ignore some of those kind of so-called, not necessarily rules, but strategies that artists have used. So I'm just going to put this cool yellow right here. And you can see I'm making sure to kind of go just a little bit over these edges. I want to try to avoid building up thick layers of paint so that it's not super, so that I don't have any weird ridges in here. So if you do, you can just kind of smooth that out, because again, that's going to be covered with paint. Just go a little bit further down. It's always, if you're doing this kind of method, it's nice to have a bigger runway or something. If you're, not that you might be thinking in aviation terms, but it's just easier to if you can start here and just gradually blend it. You'll have a smoother transition from one color to the other, just as well as up here. Okay. So I'm going to blow dry that just to speed up the drying process, although since I didn't put any medium or anything in it at all, it's going to dry pretty quick anyway, but ooh. Okay. Perfect. So, you know, if you're painting relatively thin and you're using no extra additives in that paint, it actually dries so much faster, eh? Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit more. You saw me sort of picking around in there. It looked like there was something came off of my brush, so I'm just going to add an extra little bit of paint in this here. You may or may not need to do that. You can also see I really didn't put, the only water I've used at all so far was just now as I took my brush out of the water. So I rarely use water at all when I'm painting. Although I did use a bit of water previously in the intro to acrylics class because I wanted to see how you could pretty much do every painting with just the paint. But subsequently, we've been using slow dry medium and glazing fluid as well because it does make things a little bit easier when the paint takes a little bit longer to dry. Okay, so now we're gonna blend some, looks like a warmer red here. It looks like we've got a warmer, if I was to name these colors, I'd say we've got a warm red down here, a cool yellow, a warm yellow, and then your magenta cool red here, a little bit of warm yellow there too. And then purple at the top there, kind of a, and purple can be warm or cool, but it looks like it's pretty much right in the middle, kind of a neutral purple. Okay, so let's dry. So let's use our warm red, and I'm probably going to need a little bit more of it. Oops, well, probably not that much, but okay, and then I'm going to put some slow dry medium on there. And right now, well, it'll be basically like 1 to 1, I think would be a probably reasonable amount to put in. The more of the slow dry medium we put in, obviously the slower it takes to dry, the longer it's wet. But it can also make the paint more and more transparent. And not that that's necessarily a problem, it's just that you don't want it to be too transparent. Unless, like we were painting the Mona Lisa last class, and then having it really super, super transparent layers of paint in that way is very desirable. Okay. So I'm going to take this paint with the slow dry medium in here and brush it all down here. And again, I like to get the edges of my painting covered. Okay, and then I'm just going to slowly kind of go up here very lightly, and now I'm going to kind of start taking my hand off the paint, or the paintbrush a little bit. And then I can use kind of like called like a blending brush or a mop brush to try to blend some of this in. This looks like I need maybe a little bit more slow dry medium, so I'm just going to put a bit more here. Let me take my brush. There we go. So I'm just going to go over this area with, so now I've got a bunch of paint with the slow dry medium on it. You can see this is why it's nice to have all that extra space there to blend. That's not blending very well at all, is it? But if it doesn't, that's okay, because there's always a fix. So I just put more paint in here. Let's try that. I think it's because there's still actually quite a lot of texture on the surface of my canvas here, and so the paint, rather than just sitting right on the surface, it's getting trapped in all those little pockets in the canvas. Okay, so since that's not working as I would have liked it, then I'm just going to go right to, I'm going to add some slow dry medium into my yellow, and we're going to kind of blend them that way. So let's take another, where's my other brush that I have? So let's take this. This is my cool yellow with the slow dry medium in here. And let's go back down this way. All right, and then we're going to take red and just come back up. And then, so I've got a lot of red on my brush. So if I take, this is my yellow brush, if I start going further up there, I'm going to start spreading red everywhere. So I'm just going to rub some of that off, maybe even clean that brush. Where did that blue come from? Okay, so let's, now that we've got this going, I'm just going to now take some more slow dry medium, and I'm going to basically put it in with all my colors here. So, because I'm just going to keep on blending directly on the canvas like that. And then this brush I'm going to clean. So it's, you know, when something like that happens where the paint isn't behaving the way you want, it can be a little bit scary at first, because you're just like, what's going on? Ah, it's not behaving properly. But, you know, if the most important thing is if you can kind of understand what's happening, and then to try to learn from it. Right? So I'm going to take this slow dry medium with the yellow, and so brush that back over top here, and I'm going to do this with the warm yellow. We'll put a little bit of warm yellow in here next with slow dry medium. Let's go right across here. I'll just blend that in. very red, or my mop brush here is very, very red. Let's see if and some little hairs came out of it. That's not good. This is why I haven't put these blending brushes in the links below to buy them, because I wanted to kind of figure out if they worked before I start recommending them. It doesn't look like I can do that. That's a bummer. Okay, so let's see if I can brush that out. I'm just going to scrape it out. There we go. Just sort of chase those little things out of the painting. They are just really... Oh, you know what? I think part of that is also fuzz from this old sock that I'm using to clean my brushes. So maybe it wasn't the fault of the paintbrush after all. Sorry, paintbrush. I'm blaming your problems on my rags, my old socks. So what's ended up happening is I've pushed everything up a little bit high. So, oh man, I got that here. All my rags are right up as far away as that I can reach. I'm going to have to take my microphone off and get it proper. Did not mean to drop that $500 lens on the floor. Uh-oh, I'll see if that still works. And then I got a drip of water or something on the surface here. So, but you know what? This is all good learning lessons here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blow dry this, and then I'm going to kind of start kind of over again. Not completely over, but I'm going to blend some things back down and pull these colors down here. So, again, stuff happens that is unexpected, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Okay, so still a bit tacky, but I'm just going to keep on going anyway, even over top of this tacky surface. So, you know, I was thinking that those old socks, because I just take t-shirts and socks that I was going to throw out, and I just cut them up and use them as rags. I have been thinking that those socks aren't as good as the t-shirts. And there I've proved it to myself in another episode of What Not to Do here. Okay. So maybe I'm going to, in order to help me visualize this, I'm going to start from up top here and make a purple and then mix that purple back down here. So I'm taking my cool red and my warm blue, and here's some slow dry medium in here as well. Okay. And this doesn't surprise me either, that as I paint this over top of the yellow, it goes a little bit brown because the brown, yellow, and purple are on the opposite side of the color wheel. Right, so yellow is on the opposite side of the color wheel than purple. We layer them over top of one another. They're going through the neutral core, which gives us brown. So, again, if that's not working out, then I'm going to take a bit of white. I'm going to add it to it. I'm just going to do, we're going to paint over this area a little bit. The white's going to kind of help hide some of the yellow. And I'm going to kind of do this again. So I'm obliterating that original image. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, and that was actually supposed to be pink next instead of yellow, right? Sometimes it's the easy. It's not sometimes. Every time I try to paint a really easy or so-called easy painting that looks like it's going to be very simple, that's always, inevitably, always the paintings that I seem to kind of struggle with the most. I don't know why things have been particularly sticky. Maybe it's starting to get warmer here and less humid, and the slow dry medium is drying much faster. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. So I'm going to come back and do, well, actually, that's pretty close to the original now I look at it. Not too bad. Maybe I'll wait for that to dry and come back later on with some a little bit darker purple that doesn't have any white in it. So let's use this here, yellow. really having a difficult time with this painting. Why is it being so difficult with me? Okay. Just trying to... I mean, I think things are going to look a little better when the waves are around there, but I'm not really satisfied with the way this looks currently. Okay. So this is going to get yellow. I might have to do a couple layers of... Let's see. The other thing with it, the frustrating thing I find with slow dry medium is when it gets kind of a little bit dry, it actually becomes a big pain in the butt because it starts to kind of really get sticky. Okay, a little bit better there. And I'm just going to take some white. I'll put some white right there in the middle here. And then I'm going to do this yellow over top of it. If this doesn't work, I honestly may start this one over. That's from where I'm at right now. But, you know, it's that kind of, this stuff happens as you're painting. It doesn't always go exactly according to plan. And, you know, you sort of have to do... you know, you try your best, and if things don't go the first time around, then you can paint over it, and you try again. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to blow dry this, and then I think that should give everything a little bit of time to restart this. I mean, it's still, again, tacky, which is not ideal for blending. But let's just see if I can make it work anyway while it's tacky. So, put a bit more yellow on here and drip some yellow right here. That's okay, because we'll paint over that. This actually would have been, if you were painting on watercolor, which is what it looks like she did, would have been the ideal material for making a painting like this. Watercolor obviously blends much better, especially when the paint is a little bit wet. So I've just gone ahead here and getting my colors mixed together. So I got some cool yellow and warm yellow with a bit of slow dry medium mixed, pre-mixed. And let's just do this again. So taking my warm yellow, and then my cool yellow, and then I'm bringing my warm red back up from the bottom down here. And then so it's taking this cool yellow and just kind of going over this intersectional area here. And bringing a bit of the red into the yellow. As it starts to dry, it really becomes an unhappy customer, doesn't it? So put a bunch more slow dry medium on my brush here to help. Since that's not working right there, I'm just going to wipe some of it right off. And we will come back in here. Take my warm yellow and bring it down a bit. can see there was a few times where it looked like I almost had it, and then I kind of went a little bit too far. You know what? I think I'm just going to move on from that, although I am kind of tempted up here where the purple is to add a bit of a darker purple, and then maybe even have the color drip a little bit here. Let me think about it as we clean some brushes. I'm going to blow dry this. Okay. So it's still very wet. I think while this is all wet, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start painting white around this edge, which is my white's right there in front of my face. Ideally, again, you'd want to wait for all of this to dry before you paint something wet right over top of it, but this will help clean up the image a little bit as well. Like it'll start whatever kind of mess you might have made like me. Will kind of make it look a little bit more intentional. Oh, I was going to use tape, wasn't I? You know what? I don't know if I really need tape to pull this off. It would probably help. It would make it look nicer. If I wanted to use tape, I would have needed to do it before I started putting this white on. And what I would have done is put the tape over top of this part of the image that I want to protect. So this area here where the tip of the wave, I'm going to spend too long kind of fumbling around here, because I'm going to paint all that in later on. But okay, so you can see now what looked like a complete utter mess has been resolved to some extent. It's no longer quite as terrifying as it appeared just moments ago. So let's blow dry this, and then we'll paint the waves into this area here. Oh, I was thinking about doing purple, or drippy purple. Okay, so just curious how the audio is sounding there. Do people still hear a hiss that is upsetting and frustrating, or has that kind of gone away a little? If not, if it's bad, then I'll return that equipment. But just always kind of curious to hear what people's impressions are in the moment. Okay, I think that's pretty good. You know, if I wanted, I could do another layer of white over top of it. If there was still a lot of paint showing through, like it is getting a bit darker up here. But I am also strongly considering doing a bit of dripping with purple paint up here. Don't know if that's going to be a good idea or not, which means it probably is a good idea to try it. Or should I just get on with it? I think I'm just going to get on with it, because that would be another experiment that may or may not work, and I don't want to be delay any further. Should I not? If I was going to do the drips, like, see, the other thing is all of this is still quite wet. I'm going to do a bit of drips. I can't help myself. Okay. So to get a little bit of dripping going on, I'm going to mix a purple. So that's going to be my warm blue and my cool red. And right now that's pretty dark, right? So this was my original one with some white in it. Just lighten it up a bit. Okay. Maybe I'll use the Shary Boyle book from the library to help prop things up. Let me see if I can prop things up in a way that we can show it on camera. Maybe it's a bad idea to use the library book for this. And I don't want to make it too steep, that's the thing. But also, it needs to be steep enough. Okay. So I've got my paint mixed here. I'm going to get some water on my brush. And so I'm mixing more and more water. Maybe I'll just dump a bit. And again, it doesn't matter really what color that water is. And you can see here it's kind of getting pretty fluid. Okay. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it right up top here. And balance this brush somewhere. Okay, I have a cold setting on this brush. It's not really dripping in the way that I hoped it would. So, let me see if I can kind of fake it a bit. Oh, goodness. Okay, so since that has behaved like that, I have a lot of paint that's kind of built up there that didn't blend. So what I'm doing right now is I'm really just trying to get rid of the excess paint, because I don't want too thick of ridges up here, so... I probably could have added more water. It's also much darker than I thought it would be. Maybe I'll just blow dry it like that. I'll use the heat setting this time. It has kind of started cracking in a way I didn't expect. And because it's not turning out exactly the way I want with the kind of dripping I wanted, I'm just going to go in here and just touch it up a little bit and make these look a little bit more drip-like. Ay, ay, ay. You know, sometimes you just think I just leave things alone, but to touch that up now that I've fiddled with it enough. But while that's drying up here, this is still a little bit tacky. It's funny, like the white is dry, but this stuff that I painted, 30 minutes ago was still a little bit tacky, so there's maybe a little bit too much slow dry medium in there. But what I want to do is start kind of thinking about where these lines are going to be, because I want to draw a few simple little lines with my pencil. And a ruler. Yeah, so there's that hiss was not in the previous videos because it's a totally different audio setup that I have today, so I guess that's going back to the store. So I'm just going to make a few little lines for myself. They don't even have to be that dark. This is just to try to make sure things are going to be straight as I paint them. Maybe I'll come back up here and do. Now obviously some of these lines were in the template, but I chose not to paint or draw those lines because I knew I'd be painting over them. So these are like little guidelines for myself. And so we're going to go thicker and then go thinner and thinner as we get up to the top there. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that the dough goes away when I mute the microphone. I bought it because I was wanted to amplify the audio of my voice, my microphone, and because it's always so quiet, I wanted to make it louder, but now it's introducing all of this hiss, so. Okay. I'm just going to blow dry this again. Everything's very, very tacky on here. Okay, so I just said all that stuff with my camera volume muted, and then I'm about to mute it again. Okay, so what I was saying there during that time the audio was muted, is that there's, clearly there's a few things that have not gone according to plan with this painting, which, is understandably frustrating. But the main thing is if I'm learning if I make a mistake and I don't learn anything from it, then that would be a wasted opportunity. However, if I make something and I recognize what happened and why it happened, then that's actually a great thing. That means that's a learning experience. And the more of those experiences we get, the better and better we're going to get at painting. So when things go wrong, it can be frustrating, but it also means that I'm learning. So, and yeah, I've been painting for 20 years now, and I'm going to make mistakes too, right? And as much as I like to think I know everything that's to be known about painting, there's also all sorts of different factors that come into play when you're painting, like the humidity and speed and the heat of the lights and all this different kind of stuff that changes the outcome. And, if I could predict exactly what was going to happen before I started making the painting, then would I really want to make the painting? If I knew that exactly, part of the main reason I like painting is letting go a little bit, and letting go of some control and letting things happen, and being my favorite thing about making art is being surprised. I always think of myself as the very first viewer of an artwork, and the more that happens, I think for me the more exciting it is when things are unfolding and being revealed to me in real time. And I can understand why for some people that is not desirable, that they want to know exactly what's going to happen before they set out to paint. But maybe it's just because I've been painting so long that I often I want a little bit more excitement and adventure in my life, because that excitement happening on a canvas is something that the stakes are very low. One of my best friends who lives in Paris, him and I would always joke about, like, I would just say, don't worry about it, it's just art. Like, it's not like we're sending people to the moon or building a vaccine to cure people from diseases or prevent diseases or anything like that. It's just making art. And I'm an artist, and I don't mean that to denigrate art, this thing I've dedicated my life to, because I actually think that's one of the great things about art, is that it's a place where we can play and experiment and try different things. And if they don't turn out, well, so what? Anyway, so what I'm doing here, I'm going to start working on the waves. I'm making a cool blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of cool yellow to it. So I just took some cool blue, and mixed a little bit of white, not too much, because we want to reserve the majority of the white. Oops, not that view. I want the majority of the white and gray to be a little bit higher here. Right, so because I'm going to start painting down here, I'm going to work my way a little bit higher up here. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to add a bit of the cool yellow to this mixture to give it just a little bit more of a turquoise quality here. Not too much. Like you can see, I barely put any yellow in it at all, but it does just give it a little bit more of a slight green quality, that turquoise quality that I want. Okay, so let's grab a brush and just start painting these waves. So I also put a little bit of slow dry medium in there as well, just FYI. Okay. So I noticed too that she's painted like these waves are actually quite transparent. So I'm adding a lot more slow dry medium in there in order to try to get a little bit more of a brushy quality so that I can see some of the white kind of coming through. Again, I could use tape here to create an even sharper edge. I'm going to paint right up, maybe I'll even zoom in a bit here. So what I'm doing is I kind of just paint out the white, and then I go back over top of it with my brush to kind of hide that first little bit there. Okay. And then let's say I go here. So then I'm going to now paint here. Okay. And actually I could do a bit of blending here. So you see how this slow dry medium allows some of these brush strokes to come through a bit? Now some people may not like that at all, so it's kind of up to you as you paint to decide. Okay. And you know, as you go here, you can maybe add a little bit more. Maybe I'll go take a bit more of the darker blue and mix this back in and just come back into some of these areas and darken a few places maybe. Maybe not everywhere, but just a little bit. Some of those peaks. Okay. Oh, and I gotta remember to come across here. Darker paint. That's funny, on the screen it almost looks like there's that little bit of a white halo, but there isn't. That's strange. Anyway, as I come up here, I'm gonna add maybe a little bit more white into this mixture. So I've got some white there. I'm just going to start transitioning as we get closer to the top, just a little bit more white. And then these, of course, these lines are intended to get closer and closer together as we go. The other thing I want to try to do is modify how these waves kind of, you can see how so far everyone is kind of gone up this way. Same here, so now I'm going to try to kind of start with a bump there. just so it has a bit more of that randomness that we would expect to see in nature. Oops, so that's sloping down a little bit, so it's good to take a little bit of a look. Maybe this is an opportunity to do that there. Okay. Soften up all these edges here as much as you want or as little as you want. Okay, so I really need to start adding more and more white into my paint here. So as things go further into the background, they're going to get more, they're going to get lighter. I should have maybe done a little bit more of that, but I can always, again, I could still do that if I wanted. It's never too late. It's going to go over these peaks here with a bit of a lighter, the same one I just used up here, just to soften these guys up. And you can always use white later on to clean anything up, or different kinds, different levels of the blue. Okay, so I'm just going to keep on going here. See that as she's going back into the distance, these waves get straighter and straighter. I'm going to paint white right over top of all of this later on, so I'm not even really thinking too hard about that. In fact, part of me even starts thinking if I should paint some white up top there over here to clean up this edge. Yeah. That helps, I think. Okay. I lost a little bit of volume, the width there, but let's sort of shape this wave again a bit. Looks like the, okay, audio's still working, hopefully, right? Probably one of the major problems I have is just not drinking enough tea as I should nothing a little bit of tea can't fix. Okay, I'm just going to keep on. Well, actually, you know, I should blow dry all that white there before I start painting on it. Otherwise, it'll be, not that I don't like painting wet on wet, but if I'm painting wet on a little bit dry paint, then it kind of is. Okay, let's keep on trucking here. Yikes. See, oh, it's still so wet down there. Okay, I think actually at this point I'm gonna mix a bit of gray, and you know, we can do it entirely with the colors on here, but actually I'm gonna hold off on the gray just for a few more waves first. A bit of slow dry medium in here because make it easier to paint. So I'm just taking the same turquoise color, adding more and more white as I'm going further into the background. And actually I'm going to switch to a smaller brush too, just makes it a little bit easier to get into some finer detail when you've got a smaller brush. So. I could also see somebody starting from the top and working their way down. That might be probably the smarter option because you wouldn't have to reach over a wet painting to get but Actually, I could, rather than adding gray to this, I could just keep on going further and further white. I'm going to take a little bit of black and mix a gray here. Especially if I'm going to paint white right around here, it might make sense to have a little bit of a contrast to help that process along. There. You know, as you're mixing some of these colors, you know, you can always take some of that same color and transplant it a few other places, which I think actually works really nice because it just kind of helps incorporate that a little bit. A little bit more variety. There we go. Not sure that worked out super well, but I'm going to keep on moving forward, and I'll fix that later on. I like to try to get a bit more funkiness in some of these waves so that they don't all just follow the same repeating pattern across the painting. So unless that's what you want, you do what you want as you paint it. I saw a few people painting water imagery over in the Facebook group over the past little week. I think there was 3 or 4 people that did something water related, which was kind of interesting. I don't know if that was because of this painting coming up or something in the news that I'm not aware of, but I would, living up here in Canada, being in the middle of winter and spring just beginning upon us now. The call of the water, even though the water is freezing, is growing, right? That desire to get out and put on the shorts and run around and jump in lakes and rivers. Especially, we've been held up in our homes for so long that we're kind of getting closer and closer to the end of this whole pandemic thing. It's getting kind of exciting to think of, like what does everybody really want to do when this is behind us, and when will you want to do it? Because one of the things I miss the most is going to movies and theater, and most of my friends are musicians, so I'm super excited to see them playing music live. And I mean, I've seen a few concerts on the computer, just watching people performing, and that's nice. But I can't wait to go see my friends on a stage somewhere, and the lights going down, and giving them my undivided attention, and seeing live comedy, like all those kind of things, again, are things that my wife and I do over Zoom and Skype and kind of like what we're doing right now, like a YouTube live stream. But it'll be really nice to be able to actually go up to people and shake their hands after a show and congratulate them, and buy a t-shirt right there on the spot and not have to wait 6 weeks for it to arrive in the mail. It's also because we have a really young daughter, and being able to go out and experience those things with her is something that we really look forward to as well. So because that's a big thing about being a kid, is those summer festivals. And I remember very little of it, but I remember I think it was my very first concert. We went and saw the Beach Boys at what used to be called Pascapoo in Calgary, or Canada Olympic Park, where they had the ski jump for the 1988 Olympics. And there was a kind of hill there, and when you're a little kid watching those kind of things, you're just getting up and dancing, and you're free and happy and laughing, eating too much popcorn and soda, and falling asleep on the blanket. And those are all things that I'm super excited to do with our daughter. Oh, Irene says, I changed mine, sea and sky. It started going that way, so I went with it. Cool. I love it when that happens. And the painting just kind of says, okay, this is where we're going. That's a big moment where you sort of take a bit of an unexpected detour because the painting is pulling you in that direction, and when you stop fighting it and you just go, okay, let's do this. Why don't you show me where you want to go? And it doesn't always work out. Okay, pretty close to the top of the painting. Although I probably am going to, again, I'm using mostly just white at this point. You know, white, adding more and more white on my brush, and I'm not even, so I just take my brush that's got that darker paint on it and just keep on mixing. You can see, like, as I go here, I just slowly start mixing, going from this area, slowly incorporating more and more white, and I'm moving up my palette here until it's essentially nothing but white on there. In fact, I don't even know if I can really get much more on there. Okay, so then as I'm here, I can now just decide, okay, is there any areas, kind of like this area that I goofed on, that I want to just sort of touch up a little bit? I mean, I'm not super happy with the way the blended paint looks down here, so I'm considering, as we're looking here, of just going over and eliminating some of that. That's a little bit too close, that line. Okay, well, it's okay. Like in some places it looks kind of nice. I don't mind it right here, but in other places it kind of looks a little bit sloppy. So So I'm gonna blow dry this, and then I'm gonna add the white, the kind of foamy part of the wave there next. And then we have that, and then the surfer, and then we're done, right? So we're getting closer towards the end here now. I keep on forgetting to turn that audio back on after I... Okay. So now I'm going to blow... So I was going to say what Deborah said. I'm almost finished mine and I'm happy with it. I have to go now and finish it tomorrow. Thanks, Michael, for another great class. See everybody on Thursday. Hugs. Thanks, Deborah. It says, oh, and I did my waves a little differently from Michael's and Shary's. LOL, I had so much fun. Ooh, I can't wait to see what you guys were up to. I wonder if those are already on the Facebook page there. Okay, so maybe let's zoom in a bit. going to paint kind of a white outline. Actually, I think I'm gonna have to turn the canvas here. I don't really like what I'm doing here. So just gonna wipe that right off, and then I think I'm gonna do some of that again. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Since this is still so sticky, I'm going to just put a couple pieces of wood here to help me. See if I can reach. No, I can't reach that. So to do that, what is the simplest things? Okay. Let me see. I'm going to take, so I just have these parchment paper things. And I'm building a very simple kind of structure that my hand I can lean on top of it to do any kind of detail work while the paint is dry. This is what I usually do with oil paintings, and I'm making oil paintings because it can take weeks for it to dry, so you can't just use the blow dryer to speed up the process. But this way, that's a little bit too high. So let me see if I can use, this is the device I created for my spin painting. Right, and I don't know if you can see that, I can kind of just now rest my hand on top of this surface here. And that way I don't have to worry about my sleeve dragging paint right over top of the surface of the painting. Oh, let me bring this back here. may have to go over some of these lines a little bit depending on how thick I apply the white painting. As I look at the way that she did it, it's like really gorgeous, actually. So there's that little blob there. I just peeled that off. I'm going to add a little bit of this blue back over in some of these areas anyway, but so she kind of darkened. Do I want to put a little bit more white in a few places. And then I'm going to go back over a few places with these blues again. It's got lots of little tiny sprinkles of water, and so let's do a bit of some little I've been wanting to paint this painting for quite a while, actually. I had intended to paint this the same week as we did the Murakami painting, The Great Wave. I just got changed my mind a little bit, obviously. Okay. And again, while I'm right here, I might just clean up a few of these waves and widen the white line in between them. Okay. That might be okay. I liked how she made things maybe a little bit darker underneath that wave. I thought that was a smart idea. But I don't know if I need it on mine. Just looking at the way mine is, where I am at the moment. So. You know, again, I love this part of the whole process. This is where I feel like an actual craftsperson. I'm doing something like it's more than just fun and entertaining for myself, but something that, you know, just feels like, I don't know, like where I'm pulling things together, bringing things to some type of a resolution. And anyway, so what's kind of, I mean, very different, obviously, than hers, right? These drips up there, probably would not have done them if I was to do it again, or I would have done them much, much lighter. Now I'm going to put this surfer on the top. And I'm a little worried that the surfer is not going to stand out as much as it does in hers. Okay, so let's put a surfer on this painting, and I think we'll be done. I'm actually going to use black, which I very rarely ever use, just because I also want it to be slightly darker than this very, very dark purple, which I should not have made quite so dark, but what's done is done. So, I mean, I could have lightened it up. At this point, it would be probably a bad idea to go into it and do that, but I could, right? So let's take a look at the surfer. I might even make the surfer bigger anyway. Where's this bar here? Right, so you can see mine is obviously the surfer dude. It's already getting much bigger. That surfboard's much bigger, but which actually makes the wave less big and less impressive. But it kind of looks like a giant oil slick or something coming down there. So, yeah. What are you going to do, right? And now that surfboard looks almost too big for that person. But, I am now very tempted to go back over those drips with a lighter purple. Thought I was done. Looking at it now. Think about it. I think I'm gonna go just very delicately. Might have been a little heavy-handed with that. Okay. I don't know. I think I should probably just walk away. You know, I think you know, I'm quite pleased with the way things turned out. Would I have done things differently a second time? Absolutely. But it goes to show, like, I mean, obviously, I would probably lighten that top part of the wave up. But really, everything else turned out pretty darn good. I mean, there's little areas I could finagle and work on. Should I work on? Let me see. Like, there's little things like that that I could touch up forever, but I think it's good. Good enough for government work, as my grandfather always used to say. So, the last thing I want to do is put my name on it and also acknowledge the author here. So, that's fun. Okay. So, I'm pretty excited with ultimately how it came together, especially considering the problems that I encountered halfway through. Like, I'm sure there was probably a number of people who saw the painting as it was developing. Maybe some of the people in the class were like, whoa, that's going in a bad direction. Oh no. And I myself was like expressing my anxiety. But what's satisfying is being able to kind of rescue that painting. I've used that analogy of the roller coaster going up and down, and sometimes it goes up and then sometimes it plummets down and you're not sure what's going on, and you're that panicky feeling and the sweat coming down and dripping down your back. What have I done? But hopefully through my own demonstration, you can see that all is not lost, right? I rescued this painting multiple times during the process of making it. Whether it is a fully healthy individual at the end of the day is up to you to decide, but it is satisfying that when those problems happen, if we just kind of take a deep breath, have a sip of tea, and maybe put a little bit of white. You saw me paint out a whole area of the painting, and then blow dry it and start again. And if it causes a problem again, paint it out white, blow dry it, start it again, as many times as you need until you can kind of massage it into the place that you want it to be. And as much as I would like every painting that I paint to just come right off the paintbrush exactly the way I wanted it to be, the reality is it almost never happens that way. I've had a few experiences where I'm painting and you're just like, whoa, what's going on? Everything's turning out the way. And that is a great, great feeling. But, you know, I've had maybe a dozen of those experiences over the past 25 years that I've been a professional artist. So that is, those moments are the moments you're always kind of chasing, because you always want that feeling again. But in reality, it's almost impossible for that to happen all the time, and you're going to have those kind of setbacks. And if you understand that those are going to happen and that's an inevitable part of the process, then when they happen, it's not so scary. So, if you liked today's episode, despite the difficulties we had and the unexpected length that it's taken me to finish it, I would love for you to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when the next videos are coming up. On Thursday, we're going to make a painting. It is officially spring break in most parts of North America. Some people began last week and some people begin this week or even the week after. But on March 25th is generally what's known as Tolkien Reading Day. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of Lord of the Rings. And I've got a pretty clear idea of what I want to do for that painting. I'm pretty excited about it. I've got some of my best friends, the guys that were the groomsmen at my wedding, are big Tolkien fans. I've read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, enjoyed it quite a lot when I was much younger. So we'll have a little bit of a Lord of the Rings themed Thursday after evening, Friday morning. Maybe that's where you are on planet Earth. So anyway, I'm super excited about that. I can't wait to make that painting. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. If you want to also leave or give a small donation via PayPal, there is the link below, so you could do that, or you could contact me directly if you want to send a check or money order, e-transfer, etc. Thank you, everybody, for joining me once again. We will see you in a few days, and yeah, happy painting, and we will see you very soon. Take care, everybody.